My son rejected a girl for years, but when her obsession escalated, she humiliated herself publicly. Now the school says he's the problem, and I have to reject the principal while I fight to defend him. Posted by you/miserable article 44. This is a throwaway account, but it involves some high school drama nonsense that someone my age shouldn't have to deal with. Maybe I'm overthinking it and missing something, so here I am. I, 45M, share a daughter, 17F, and a son, 15M, with my wife, 41F. My wife's best friend, 40F, has two daughters, 18F and 15F. My wife's best friend moved to our town about 6 years ago. My wife and her best friend have been not so subtly hoping the two 15-year-olds would end up together. I find this weird and kind of creepy. About 2 years ago, my wife's best friend's younger daughter seemed to develop a crush on our son. My son talked to me about it and said he had zero interest. We discussed how to tactfully but firmly let her down. She has approached him again multiple times over the past couple of years, and he has consistently reaffirmed his lack of interest. This past summer, my wife's best friend's oldest daughter turned 18. Her parents went all out for her birthday, making it a whole weekend of festivities and events. One of these was a couple's dinner for the oldest daughter and all her friends who were in relationships. The younger daughter of my wife's best friend wanted to go to the dinner but didn't have anyone to go with. She asked my son, and he agreed to go but only as friends and just this one time. After the dinner, the couples watched 10 Things I Hate About You together. It was my son's first time seeing it, and he commented that he thought the Heath Ledger singing scene was cool. This is important later. My business partner, 44M, throws a huge Halloween party every year for the past 5 years. All our employees, along with close friends and family, are invited. Costumes are required, and there are prizes for the best individual costume, group costume, and couples costume. My wife's best friend and her family are obviously invited every year. This year, the Halloween party is tonight, October 26th. Now, let me get to the reason I'm here. About a month ago, at school, my son was approached by my wife's best friend's younger daughter. She performed a whole song and dance routine before asking him to be her date for the Halloween party. My son was so frustrated that he reiterated, loudly enough for everyone to hear, that he is not interested in her like that. Some kids laughed, and she ran off crying. Since then, she has been bullied pretty badly because of it. My wife's best friend is livid and thinks our son owes her daughter an apology. My wife agrees and believes, at a minimum, he should defend her against the bullying. My son has said that for 2 years, he has told her he's not interested and that it's now starting to feel like harassment. He doesn't believe it's his role to defend someone who has been harassing him. I agree with my son. My wife and I have had several disagreements about this since it happened. Things have escalated in the last couple of weeks because another girl, whom my wife's best friend's daughter apparently dislikes, asked our son to be her date for the party, and he agreed. They are doing a pretty cool couple's costume. This has infuriated my wife, as she thinks he should, at the very least, avoid going to the party with another girl out of respect. I think that's ridiculous. I plan on driving them to the party myself. My wife now doesn't want to attend the party and says I am a jerk and raising our son to be one. So, am I the bad guy here? Relevant comments. Does the girl's father know what's going on regarding the situation? He's not mentioned in the post. OP, the girl's own father agrees with me. He hasn't said anything to his wife because he doesn't want to ruffle feathers at home, but he fully agrees with me. He has told his own daughter, multiple times, to leave my son alone. Should not leave his wife if she isn't taking their son's side in this situation? OP, in a marriage, with certain exceptions, you don't just get up and walk out the door over fights. She isn't actively harming our son. She had one conversation with him about it, where he stated his position. I then defended his position. Since then, the conflict has been between us alone. My son is no longer involved. I'm not going to break up my family over this. That's insane. But isn't it bad parenting not to leave when your spouse is acting like this? OP, so, you think it's bad parenting to try to resolve conflicts rather than immediately leaving? Good to know. That kind of behavior would only make kids afraid of what might happen if they have conflicts with their parents. I'm showing my son that I'm willing to go to the mat for him. Leaving would suggest I'd rather not be bothered with the problem. It might free me from the conflict, but it would do absolutely nothing for him. She's still his mother. OP responds to comments suggesting his son needs to stand up for himself more firmly. OP, I usually agree with that kind of viewpoint. The issue here is that every considerate act my son has taken toward her over the past 2 years has only encouraged her to push harder. My son has a generally overly accommodating personality. This is the first time since he was little that he's pushed back forcefully. I think it's necessary for him to stand his ground here. Update, 3 weeks later. Given the events of the past couple of weeks, I thought I'd share an update. My wife did not attend the Halloween party. I took my son and his friend, and they had a great time. Unfortunately, they only placed 4th in the couple's costume contest. After the party, tensions with my wife eased considerably. She still felt what I did was wrong, but she took a what's done is done attitude. The bullying at school has intensified. Apparently, my wife's best friend's daughter confronted the girl who my son took to the Halloween party. That escalated the bullying among the other girls, and 2 factions have formed across 2 grades over this situation. Accusations of cheating involving my son have been thrown around by some girls. However, my son has remained unbothered, as his close friends know the truth. Last Friday, we received a call from the school requesting a meeting about the situation, as they described my son as the source, their words, not mine, of the issues. On Tuesday, we met with some of the administration and a teacher. They wanted my son to help the situation by defending my wife's best friend's daughter to their classmates. He refused and described her harassing behavior over the past 2 years in detail. The school seemed to push back against his characterization of her conduct. However, we ended the meeting with my son agreeing to provide a written list of her harassment incidents over the past 2 years. That evening, my son prepared the list and showed it to both my wife and me. When my wife saw the list, it was as if scales fell from her eyes. She became emotional, apologized to our son, apologized to me, and we shared a heartfelt group hug. She is now fully on our side. She asked our son if she could share the list with her best friend, and he agreed. However, when my wife shared it, her best friend doubled down on her stance. As a result, my wife has decided to go low contact with her for the time being. On Wednesday, we took the list to the school. Since it is a private school with a strict code of conduct for students both in and out of school, there may be consequences for my wife's best friend's daughter. That day, I took my son out of school, and we spent the day together. He returned to school today, and things are starting to move forward. Edit, I want to add something I mentioned in the comments. My mother, who worked as a counselor for years, taught me that repentance and forgiveness are not one-time events but processes. She also stressed that, for a relationship to be restored, there must first be genuine repentance from the wrongdoer. In light of that, my family has a practice of writing letters when one of us causes harm to another. These letters include the following details: the wrong the person has committed, the resulting harm caused, immediate actions being taken to mitigate the harm, and long-term actions to mitigate harm and prevent repetition. My wife is currently working on her letter. The person receiving the letter can respond and request additional actions to address the harm. My wife understands this is just the beginning of the process, and it will take time. Relevant comments. What were your wife's thoughts after reading your son's list? OP, my wife told her best friend not to contact us unless it's an emergency or for parents association business, our school's version of a PTA, until she's willing to apologize to us. Why isn't the school or police addressing the bullying? OP, much of my work involves domestic violence victims. Trust me, the police wouldn't care that my son is being harassed by a girl he's a foot taller than. The school isn't taking any action against my son, and he's not in trouble. As for the police, they wouldn't even get involved with the school. Is the girl who went to the party with your son being bullied? OP, no, she isn't being bullied, from what I understand. The only incident was the confrontation, which my son says she handled well. She's in good spirits. The girl facing the increased bullying is my wife's best friend's daughter. This situation has caused 2 factions to form among the girls. How is your son handling this harassment? OP, my son isn't being bullied, nor is he involved in any bullying. He finds her behavior ridiculous and annoying but isn't emotionally impacted. He's truly unbothered, based on his words and actions. We have regular check-ins to ensure he's okay. I've asked repeatedly, are you sure? Are you completely positive you don't want or need us to do more here? He always says no. He's very much unbothered. What examples from your son's list changed your wife's view? OP, one incident that really stood out to my wife happened during spring break 2023. Both of our families went to Phoenix and stayed in an Airbnb. One night, the parents planned a pajama date night while the kids went out. My son didn't want to go, so the youngest daughter stayed back too. She took several pictures and posted them on Instagram, captioning them date night. Apparently, people at school saw it and started calling my son. He demanded she take it down, and she did. He told us about it when we returned, but my wife had forgotten about it until now.